Evan Walker thought a simple trip to the ER would end with a few stitches and a bandage, but the moment the nurse called his name, his entire world shattered. Standing in that doorway was Leah Carter, the woman who'd vanished from his life 6 years ago, without a trace, without a word, without a goodbye. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a little boy with curly hair and eyes that looked exactly like Evan's, a child he never knew existed. What Leah had been hiding all these years would force them both to confront the painful truth about love, fear, and the family they might have been. One rusty nail, one chance encounter, one secret that could either destroy them or give them the second chance they never thought they'd get. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, could you ever forgive someone who kept your child a secret for 4 years? The rusty nail caught Evan Walker's palm before he even saw it coming. "Damn it," he muttered, pulling his hand back from the weathered window frame. Blood welled up fast, spreading across his skin in a thick red line. He pressed his other hand over the wound and squeezed, but the bleeding didn't slow. Behind him, his business partner Mark leaned against the doorframe of the half-renovated beach house, arms crossed. "That looks bad, man." "It's fine." Evan grabbed a bandana from his pocket and wrapped it tight around his palm. The white fabric turned crimson almost immediately. "That's not fine." Mark straightened up, concern creasing his forehead. "You need stitches. Come on, I'll drive you." Evan shook his head. "I can drive myself." "I'll stay here and make sure the electrical crew doesn't cut corners again." "Evan, I'm good." He was already heading toward his truck, keys jangling in his uninjured hand. "I'll be back in an hour." The drive to Mercy General took 15 minutes. Evan kept his wrapped hand on the steering wheel, ignoring the throb that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The coastal town rolled past his windows, the same streets he'd known his whole life, the same ocean view that had watched him grow from a kid with nothing into a man who built things with his own 2 hands. He'd worked hard for everything he had, started his construction company at 23 with a used truck and more determination than sense. Now at 30, he employed 15 people and had more projects than he could handle. Success tasted good, but it was lonely at the top. The hospital parking lot was half full. Evan grabbed his wallet and headed inside, still pressing the bloody bandana against his palm. The ER reception area smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. A woman behind the desk looked up, took one glance at his hand and slid a clipboard toward him. "Fill this out, someone will call you shortly." Evan nodded and sat in a plastic chair that squeaked under his weight. The form asked the usual questions: name, date of birth, insurance information, emergency contact. He scribbled answers quickly, trying not to drip blood on the paper. Around him, the ER hummed with quiet activity. A kid coughed in the corner while his mother rubbed his back. An elderly man dozed in a wheelchair. The television mounted on the wall played a cooking show with the volume too low to hear. Evan handed the completed form back to the receptionist and settled in to wait. His hand throbbed harder now. He probably should have let Mark drive him after all. 10 minutes passed, then 20. He was starting to consider leaving when a door opened and a nurse stepped into the waiting area. "Evan Walker." He stood up, already moving toward her, and then everything stopped. The nurse was Leah Carter, his Leah, the woman he'd loved 6 years ago with everything he had, the woman who'd vanished from his life without explanation, leaving him with questions that still kept him awake some nights. She stood frozen in the doorway, clipboard pressed against her chest. Her dark eyes went wide. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked different, older, more tired maybe, but still beautiful in that way that had always made his chest ache. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore navy scrubs that somehow made her look both professional and vulnerable at the same time. "Leah," he said. His voice came out rough. "Evan." She blinked, like she was trying to make sure he was real. What are you—" "Cut my hand." He held up the blood-soaked bandana, suddenly aware of how stupid it sounded. Of all the emergency rooms in all the towns, he'd walked into hers. She swallowed hard and straightened her shoulders. "Right, of course, follow me." They walked down a hallway in silence. Evan's boots echoed on the linoleum. His heart hammered so hard he was sure she could hear it. 6 years. 6 years of wondering where she'd gone, why she'd left, if she ever thought about him the way he still thought about her. She led him into a small exam room and gestured toward the paper-covered table. "Have a seat." He sat. She closed the door and moved to the sink, washing her hands with mechanical efficiency. Her shoulders were tense, her movements careful. "Let me see it," she said quietly, turning back to him. Evan unwrapped the bandana. The cut gaped open, deep and angry looking. Blood started flowing again immediately. Leah pulled on latex gloves and leaned in close, examining the wound with professional focus, but her hands trembled slightly as she reached for gauze to clean away the blood. "It's deep," she said. "You'll need stitches." Figured as much. She grabbed supplies from a nearby drawer, moving with practiced ease despite the shake in her fingers. They'd been close once, so close he'd thought she might be the one. And then one morning she was just gone. No note, no explanation. Just an empty apartment and a phone number that went straight to voicemail. "This might sting," Leah warned, holding up a syringe of local anesthetic. "I can handle it." She injected the numbing medicine around the wound. He watched her face instead of the needle. She'd always bitten her bottom lip when she concentrated. She still did. "How have you been?" The question came out before he could stop it. Her hands stilled for just a second. "Good. Busy. You?" "Same. Built up the business. Staying busy." "I heard about that. Your company. People talk. It's a small town." "Yeah." She picked up a needle and thread, preparing to stitch. "It really is." They fell silent again. The air between them felt heavy with unspoken words. Evan wanted to ask her everything. Where she'd been, why she'd left, if she'd missed him even a fraction as much as he'd missed her. But the words stuck in his throat. Leah began stitching with steady, careful movements. Each pull of the thread was gentle. She'd always been gentle with him, back when they were together. Soft touches and softer words that made him feel like maybe he deserved something good in this world. "You should keep it dry for 48 hours, she said, tying off the final stitch. "Come back in 10 days to get these removed. Watch for signs of infection, redness, swelling, warmth, discharge." "Okay." She taped a clean bandage over the wound and stepped back, pulling off her gloves. "You're all set." Evan didn't move. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same pain in her eyes that lived in his chest. Whatever had happened between them, it hadn't left her untouched. "Leah," a child's voice cut through the air from somewhere beyond the curtain. "Mommy." Leah's face went pale. She glanced toward the door, then back at him, and something like panic flickered across her features. "I have to," she started. But Evan was already standing, moving toward the curtain without thinking. He pulled it back just an inch and looked out into the hallway. A little boy stood there, maybe 4 years old, holding a coloring book against his chest. He had dark curls and big brown eyes, and Evan's breath stopped in his throat. The boy had his eyes, the exact same shade of blue-gray that Evan saw every morning in the mirror. The same shape, the same way they tilted slightly at the corners. The world tilted sideways. Leah rushed past him, slipping through the gap in the curtain. "Noah, baby, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be with Aunt Rosa." She had to come to work, the boy, Noah, said, in that sweet, high voice children have. "So she brought me. I was good. I colored." "I know you were good, sweetheart. You're always good." Evan stood frozen, his mind racing. The boy looked like him. The timing would be right. 6 years ago, they'd been together, and she'd left. And Leah glanced back at him. Their eyes met. She saw that he'd seen the boy, saw that he'd noticed, and her expression crumbled into something like fear. She turned back to Noah, running her hand over his curls. "Go back to Aunt Rosa, okay? Mommy will be done soon." "Okay." Noah peeked around her, looking at Evan with open curiosity. Then he trotted back down the hallway, sneakers squeaking on the floor. Leah stepped back into the exam room and closed the curtain. She wouldn't meet Evan's eyes. "Leah," he said carefully. "Is he—" "You should go." Her voice shook. "Your hand is fine. Just keep it clean." "Leah, please." He moved closer, keeping his voice gentle, even though his heart was pounding hard enough to crack his ribs. "Is he mine?" She looked up at him then, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I can't do this right now. I'm not trying to upset you. I just need to know. I have other patients." She moved toward the door, her whole body tense. "You need to leave." He wanted to press, wanted to demand answers, but the fear in her eyes stopped him. He'd never been good at pushing when someone was scared, so he nodded and stepped past her into the hallway. At the door, he turned back. "I'm not going anywhere, Leah." "Not this time." She didn't respond, just stood there with her arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her look. Evan walked back through the ER, past the receptionist, out into the parking lot where the afternoon sun felt too bright. He sat in his truck for a long time, staring at nothing, his mind spinning in circles. A son, he might have a son. The thought was too big to fit inside his chest. Evan barely remembered driving home. His condo sat on the top floor of a building he'd helped renovate 3 years ago. Exposed brick, Huge windows overlooking the water, more space than one person needed. He dropped his keys on the kitchen counter and stood there, staring at his bandaged hand. Noah. The boy's name was Noah. A knock at the door pulled him out of his thoughts. He opened it to find Mark standing there with 2 six-packs of beer and a concerned expression. "You've been gone 3 hours," Mark said, pushing past him into the apartment. "I figured either you died or something happened." "Something happened." Mark set the beer on the counter and turned, studying Evan's face. They'd been friends since high school, long enough that Mark could read him like a book. "What happened?" Evan sat on the couch and dropped his head into his hands. "I saw Leah." "Leah?" Mark's eyebrows shot up. "You're Leah? The one who—" "Yeah, she's a nurse at Mercy General. She stitched me up." "Holy shit." Mark sat down beside him. "How did that go?" "There's more." Evan looked up, meeting his friend's eyes. "She has a son, a little boy, maybe 4 years old. And Mark, he looks exactly like me." The silence stretched between them. Mark's expression shifted from surprise to understanding to something like sympathy. "You think he's yours?" "I asked her. She wouldn't answer, just told me to leave." Mark leaned back against the couch cushions, processing. That would mean she was pregnant when she left. Yeah. Why wouldn't she tell you? That was the question that had been eating at Evan for the past 3 hours. Why would Leah keep something like that from him? They'd been good together, happy even. He would have stepped up. He would have been there. "I don't know," Evan said quietly, "but I'm going to find out." "Man, maybe you should give her some space. This has to be a shock for her too." "Space?" Evan stood up and started pacing. "Mark, if that's my kid, I've missed 4 years of his life. 4 years, his first words, his first steps, everything. I get it, but you can't force this." "I'm not trying to force anything. I just want the truth." Mark grabbed a beer and cracked it open. "What are you going to do?" Evan looked out the window at the darkening sky. The ocean stretched endlessly in the distance, vast and unknowable. He felt the same way, lost in something too big to understand. "I'm going to talk to her," he said finally. "Tomorrow, when she's had time to think. And if she won't talk, then Evan didn't know what he'd do. But giving up wasn't an option. Not now. Not when there was a little boy with his eyes walking around in the world. A little boy who might be his son. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Evan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the moment he'd seen Noah over and over. The boy's face, his eyes, the way Leah had looked so scared. He thought about the life they'd had together 6 years ago. They'd met at a coffee shop. She'd been studying for nursing exams. He'd been reviewing blueprints for a project. She'd spilled coffee on his drawings, apologized 100 times, insisted on buying him another cup. They'd ended up talking for 3 hours. After that, they were inseparable. She made him laugh, made him feel like more than just a guy trying to prove himself. She was smart and kind, and had this way of seeing straight through his walls to the parts of himself he usually kept hidden. He'd been planning to ask her to move in with him. Had picked out a ring even, though he hadn't quite worked up the nerve to propose. And then one morning she was gone. He'd looked for her, called everyone they knew, drove past her apartment a dozen times. Her roommate said she'd packed up in the middle of the night and left no forwarding address. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. Eventually, he'd given up. Figured she'd made her choice and he had to respect it, even if it killed him. He'd thrown himself into work, built his company into something real, tried to convince himself he was better off alone. But he'd never stopped thinking about her, never stopped wondering what he'd done wrong. Now, lying in the dark, he realized maybe it wasn't about him at all. Maybe she'd left because she was scared, pregnant and scared, and didn't know how to tell him. The thought made his chest ache. At 5:30 in the morning, he gave up on sleep. He showered, dressed, made coffee he didn't drink, and sat on his couch waiting for a reasonable hour to show up at the hospital. By 7, he couldn't wait anymore. Mercy General looked different in the early morning light, quieter, softer somehow. Evan parked his truck and walked to the main entrance, hands shoved in his pockets. He had no idea what he was going to say to her. He just knew he had to see her again. He didn't go inside. Instead, he found a bench near the side entrance where staff came and went, and he sat down to wait. An hour passed, then another. Nurses and doctors filtered in and out, some in scrubs, some in street clothes. He watched them all, looking for her face. Finally, at 9:15, the door opened and Leah stepped out into the sunlight. She looked exhausted. Her hair was down now, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She had her purse over one arm and her phone in her hand, and she was walking with her head down, not paying attention to anything around her. Evan stood up. "Leah," She stopped so fast she almost dropped her phone. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." "Evan, please." He took a step closer, keeping his hands visible, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. "Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She looked around like she was checking to see if anyone was watching. Then she sighed, a sound so tired it made his heart hurt. "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here," she said quietly. "I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. "Okay." She walked past him without another word, heading toward the parking lot. Evan watched her go, then started walking toward the coffee shop. His heart hammered in his chest. 10 minutes felt like an hour. When Leah finally walked through the coffee shop door, Evan was already sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He'd remembered how she took it. Cream, no sugar. Some things you don't forget. She sat down across from him and wrapped her hands around the cup without drinking. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she said. "That wasn't fair to you. You don't have to apologize." "I do." She looked up at him, and he saw the dark circles under her eyes. "You deserved better than that." They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the coffee shop hummed with morning activity. Students typing on laptops, workers grabbing drinks before their shifts, the espresso machine hissing and steaming. "Why did you leave?" Evan asked finally. 6 years ago. Why did you just disappear?" Leah's fingers tightened around her cup. She stared into the coffee like it might have answers written in the foam. "I got scared," she said softly. "You were doing so well with your business. You had all these plans, all this ambition, and I was barely making it through nursing school. I felt like I was holding you back." "That's not true. You never held me back." It felt true. She looked up at him, and her eyes were bright with old pain. "My dad left when I was 6. Just walked out one day and never came back. My mom spent the rest of her life trying to figure out what she did wrong. I grew up watching her fade away bit by bit. And when we were together, when things got serious, I got terrified that you'd leave too, that I wasn't enough to make you stay." Evan's throat tightened. "So you left first?" "Yeah, I left first." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "I thought it would be easier that way, cleaner. It wasn't easier for me." "I know. I'm sorry." He wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, but he wasn't sure if she'd let him. "Is Noah mine?" he asked gently. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with something that looked like fear and hope and exhaustion, all mixed together. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe." The word hit him like a punch. "Maybe. Not yes, not no, maybe." "You don't know." "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I left. I was already gone, already trying to build a new life. And I thought," her voice cracked, "I thought if I told you, you'd feel trapped. Or you'd think I was trying to trap you. And I couldn't handle that. Couldn't handle seeing you look at me like I'd ruined your life, Leah. So I kept it to myself, moved in with my aunt, had the baby, raised him on my own." She looked down at her hands. "I told myself I was protecting him, protecting both of us, but maybe I was just being a coward." Evan had to take a breath before he could speak. "You're not a coward. You're scared. There's a difference." "Is there?" Before he could answer, the coffee shop door opened and a small figure came running in. Noah, followed by an older woman who had to be Aunt Rosa. Noah spotted Leah immediately. "Mommy?" He ran to their table, and Leah caught him in a hug, pulling him close. "Baby, what are you doing here?" "Aunt Rosa said we could get hot chocolate." Noah looked up at Evan, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You're the man from the hospital." "Yeah," Evan said, his voice rough. "I'm Evan. I'm Noah." The boy stuck out his hand like a little adult. Evan shook it gently and something broke open in his chest. This little person, this perfect little person, with his eyes and Leah's smile. He might be his son. Aunt Rosa reached the table, slightly out of breath. "I'm sorry, Leah. He saw you through the window and bolted before I could stop him." "It's okay." Leah stood up, still holding Noah's hand. "Aunt Rosa, this is Evan. Evan, this is my Aunt Rosa." Rosa looked between them with sharp, knowing eyes. "So you're Evan?" "Yes, Mom." She didn't elaborate, but her expression said plenty. Noah tugged on Leah's shirt. "Can we get hot chocolate now?" "Sure, baby. Go pick what you want." Noah ran to the counter, Rosa following at a more sedate pace. That left Evan and Leah standing awkwardly by the table. "I should go," Leah said. "Let you get back to... Can I walk you home?" The words came out before Evan could stop them. "Just to make sure you get there safe. It's a long walk when you're carrying things." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay." They stopped at a grocery store on the way. Noah held Leah's hand and chatted about his coloring book while Evan pushed the cart. It felt surreal, walking through the produce section like they were a normal family, like the past 6 years hadn't happened. Leah picked out apples and bananas. Noah asked for graham crackers and cheese sticks. Evan found himself adding things to the cart without thinking. Juice boxes, string cheese, the kind of snacks a kid might like. At the register, Leah pulled out her wallet, but Evan was already handing his card to the cashier. "You don't have to do that," Leah said quietly. "I want to." They walked the last 3 blocks to her apartment in comfortable silence. Noah kept peeking up at Evan, curiosity written all over his little face. Leah's place was a small 2-bedroom on the 2nd floor of an older building. The stairs creaked under their weight. She unlocked the door and Noah ran inside, heading straight for a box of toys in the corner. Evan set the grocery bags on the kitchen counter. The apartment was small but warm. Photos on the walls, crayon drawings stuck to the fridge with magnets, a worn couch with a blanket draped over the back. "This is nice," he said. "It's home." Leah started unpacking groceries. Her movements were careful, controlled. Noah appeared at Evan's elbow, holding up a wooden block. "Want to build with me?" Evan looked at Leah. She gave a small nod. "Sure," Evan said, lowering himself to the floor. "What are we building?" "A castle, for the dinosaurs." They built in silence, stacking blocks while Noah provided running commentary about which dinosaur lived where and why the T-Rex needed the biggest room. Evan found himself smiling, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. When the castle was done, lopsided but sturdy, Noah looked up at him with those blue-gray eyes. "Will you come again?" he asked, so quietly Evan almost didn't hear it. Evan glanced at Leah. She stood in the kitchen doorway watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. "If your mom says it's okay," Evan said carefully. Noah looked at Leah with hopeful eyes. "Can he, Mommy? Please?" Leah's hands twisted together. She looked scared again, but underneath the fear was something else, something that looked a little bit like hope. "We'll see, baby," she said softly. At the door, Evan paused. Leah stood close enough that he could smell her shampoo, the same kind she'd always used, something floral and clean. "We're not ready for answers yet," she said quietly, looking up at him. "I need time to think, to figure out how to do this." "Okay, thank you for being patient." He wanted to tell her he'd be patient for however long it took, that he wasn't going anywhere this time, but the words felt too big, too much. So he just nodded and headed down the stairs. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm on his face. Evan sat in his truck for a long time before starting the engine. Inside that apartment was a little boy who might be his son, a woman he'd never stopped loving, a whole life he didn't know existed. And for the first time in 6 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he had something worth fighting for. That evening, Evan sat on his couch with his phone in his hand. He'd typed and deleted a dozen messages to Leah. Nothing felt right. Everything felt too heavy or too casual or just wrong. Finally, he settled on something simple. "Thank you for today." He stared at it for 5 minutes before hitting send. The response came 20 minutes later. Just 3 words, but they made his heart skip a beat. "Thank you for being gentle." Evan read it over and over, looking for hidden meanings, trying to understand what she was feeling. Then he set his phone down and leaned back, closing his eyes. Tomorrow he'd go back to work. He'd inspect job sites and review contracts and do all the normal things he did to keep his business running. But underneath it all, his mind would be on Leah and Noah. On the possibility of a family he'd never known he could have. On the chance that maybe, just maybe, he could get it right this time. Morning came too early. Evan rolled over and grabbed his phone, checking for messages, even though he knew Leah probably wouldn't text. She hadn't. He got up anyway, showered, dressed, and tried to focus on the day ahead. Work was supposed to be a distraction. It wasn't. At the beach house renovation, Mark found him staring at the same blueprint he'd been holding for 15 minutes. "You're not even seeing that, are you?" Mark asked. Evan blinked and set the paper down. "No. You thinking about her?" "And Noah." "Yeah." Mark leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. She asked for time. I'm trying to give it to her." "That's probably smart." "Doesn't feel smart. Feels like torture." His phone buzzed in his pocket. Evan pulled it out so fast he nearly dropped it. The message was from Leah. "Noah keeps asking about you. If you're free tomorrow afternoon, we'll be at Harbor Park around 2, just to see." Evan's heart kicked hard against his ribs. He typed back immediately. "I'll be there." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Okay. Good news?" Mark asked, reading his expression. She wants me to meet them at the park tomorrow. That's progress, man. Progress? Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it was just Leah being kind, letting him see Noah once more before she pulled away again. Evan tried not to think about that possibility. The rest of the day dragged. He went through the motions, checking work, talking to contractors, reviewing estimates. But his mind was already at Harbour Park, imagining Noah running across the grass, imagining Leah sitting on a bench watching them. That night, he barely slept again. Harbour Park sat right on the water, with a playground, picnic tables and a walking path that curved along the shoreline. Evan arrived 15 minutes early, parked his truck, and sat on a bench near the playground. The afternoon was warm and clear. Families scattered across the grass, kids on swings, parents pushing strollers, dogs chasing tennis balls. Normal life, the kind of life Evan had never quite figured out how to build for himself. At 2 o'clock exactly, Leah appeared on the path with Noah's small hand tucked in hers. She wore jeans and a simple blue shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Noah had on a striped t-shirt and light-up sneakers that blinked red with every step. When Noah spotted Evan, his face lit up. Evie, the nickname, hit Evan square in the chest. He stood up, smiling. Hey, buddy. Noah tugged on Leah's hand, pulling her toward him. Can I show him the swings? Leah looked at Evan, something uncertain in her eyes. If Evan wants to. I'd love to, Evan said. They walked to the playground together. Noah ran ahead, his light-up shoes flashing. When they reached the swings, he climbed onto one and looked at Evan expectantly. Push me? Sure thing. Evan moved behind the swing and gave it a gentle push. Noah laughed, a sound so pure and happy it made everything else fade away. Another push, a little higher. Noah's laughter grew louder. Higher, Noah called out. Not too high, Leah said quickly, standing nearby with her arms crossed. He gets scared if he goes too high. Evan kept the pushes steady and even, watching Noah's face for any sign of fear. But the boy just grinned, his curls bouncing with each swing forward. After a while, Noah jumped off and ran to the sandbox. Evan followed, settling into the sand beside him, while Leah sat on a nearby bench, watching. What are we building? Evan asked. A tower, a really tall one. They worked together, Noah directing with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he wanted. Evan helped pack sand into buckets and turn them over, creating walls and turrets. Other kids played around them, but Noah stayed focused on his tower, occasionally reaching over to fix something Evan had done. You're good at this, Noah said seriously. Thanks. You're a good teacher. Noah beamed. Then, without warning, he leaned against Evan's arm, comfortable and trusting. Something cracked open in Evan's chest, a feeling so big and overwhelming he couldn't name it. This little person barely knew him, but he was already letting Evan in, trusting him, and Evan would do anything to be worthy of that trust. When the tower was finished, Noah ran to get Leah so she could see it. She walked over, admiring their work with genuine enthusiasm. That's amazing, baby. You did such a good job. Evie helped. I can see that. She glanced at Evan, and for just a second her guard came down. She looked at him the way she used to, soft and warm and full of something that might have been affection. Then she looked away. They spent another hour at the park. Noah showed Evan his favorite hiding spot behind a big tree, taught him the proper way to go down the slide, feet first, arms up, and explained in great detail why dinosaurs were better than dragons. Evan listened to every word, memorizing the sound of Noah's voice, the way he pronounced his R's like W's, the gap between his front teeth when he smiled. When the sun started sinking lower, Leah said it was time to go. Noah's face fell. Do we have to? Yes, baby. It's almost dinner time. Noah looked up at Evan. Will you come again? Evan glanced at Leah. She bit her bottom lip, then nodded almost imperceptibly. Yeah, buddy. I'll come again. Promise. Promise. They walked back to the parking lot together. At Leah's car, Noah gave Evan an unexpected hug, quick and fierce, then climbed into his car seat. Leah stood by the driver's door, keys in hand. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. He really likes you. I really like him. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Evan saw all the fear and hope and uncertainty swirling in her eyes. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something important, then closed it again. I should go, she said instead. Okay. But neither of them moved. They stood there in the parking lot, caught in a moment that felt too fragile to break. Finally, Leah got in her car and drove away. Evan watched until her taillights disappeared around the corner. Over the next 2 weeks they fell into a pattern. Evan would stop by Leah's apartment after work with takeout or groceries. Sometimes Leah would invite him in, sometimes they'd just talk on the porch. Noah was always excited to see him, always had a new story or drawing to share. They didn't talk about the past, didn't talk about paternity or what any of this meant. They just existed together, carefully building something new on top of old foundations. Evan learned that Noah loved peanut butter sandwiches cut into triangles, hated green beans but loved broccoli, and could recite every dinosaur name from a book he'd memorized. He learned that Leah worked 3 12-hour shifts a week at the hospital, that she was trying to save money for a house, that her favorite food was still Thai curry. He started keeping toys in his truck, a stuffed dinosaur, a small wooden train set, coloring books, just in case, just to see Noah smile when he pulled them out. One evening, Evan arrived to find Leah sitting on her porch steps, head in her hands. Noah was inside with Aunt Rosa. "What's wrong?" Evan sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "Nothing, everything, I don't know." She looked up at him, exhausted. "The car needs new tires. The landlord raised the rent. My student loans are crushing me. And Noah needs new shoes because he's growing faster than I can keep up with. Let me help." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking, I'm offering." She shook her head. "That's not fair to you." "Leah." He waited until she looked at him. "If Noah is mine, and I think he is, then I've missed 4 years of taking care of him. 4 years of diapers and doctor visits and everything else. Let me do this. Please." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not trying to keep you out because I want your money. I know that. I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm scared of letting you in and having you leave. I'm scared of Noah getting attached and then losing you. I'm scared of doing this wrong and hurting everyone." Evan shifted closer, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I'm scared too, but I'm not leaving. Not this time. Not ever." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." She looked at him like she wanted desperately to believe him, but didn't know how. Then Aunt Rosa opened the door and the moment broke. "Noah wants you to read him a story," Rosa called to Evan. "He's very insistent." Evan stood and offered Leah his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet. Her hand was small and warm in his, and when she didn't immediately pull away, his heart did something complicated in his chest. Inside, Noah was already in his pajamas, clutching a well-worn picture book. "This one," he said, handing it to Evan. "It's about a bear." Evan settled on the couch with Noah tucked against his side. The weight of the little boy against him felt right in a way nothing else ever had. He read the story slowly, doing different voices for each character. Noah giggled at all the right parts. When the story ended, Noah yawned. "One more." "Baby, Evan has to go home," Leah said gently. "But I'm not sleepy." "How about this?" Evan said. "I'll come back tomorrow after work and read you 2 stories. Deal?" Noah considered this seriously. "Deal." Leah carried Noah to bed while Evan helped Aunt Rosa clean up the few dishes in the sink. Rosa studied him with sharp eyes. "You're good with him," she said. "He's a good kid." "He is. And Leah's a good mother. She's done everything for that boy." "I know. She's been hurt before. By her father. By other people who should have protected her. If you're going to be part of their lives, you need to be sure. You need to stay." Evan met her gaze steadily. "I'm sure." Rosa nodded slowly, like she was deciding whether to believe him. "We'll see." When Leah came back out, her eyes were red-rimmed. Evan wanted to ask if she was okay, but Aunt Rosa was already gathering her things to leave. At the door, Evan paused. "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Leah confirmed softly. He walked to his truck feeling lighter than he had in days. The next afternoon, Evan showed up at Leah's apartment with a toolbox and a bag of groceries. When she answered the door, confusion crossed her face. "What's all this?" "I noticed your porch railing is loose. Thought I'd fix it. And I brought stuff for dinner. Figured I could cook while Noah and I hang out." "Evan, you don't have to." "I want to." She stepped aside to let him in. Noah immediately latched onto his leg in a hug, then dragged him to see a new Lego creation he'd built. While Leah got ready for a shift at the hospital, Evan fixed the railing, tightened the hinges on a squeaky cabinet door, and replaced a burned-out light bulb in the bathroom. Small things. Things that needed doing. When Leah came out in her scrubs, ready to leave, she stopped and looked around at everything he'd fixed. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Any time." Their eyes met and held. Something passed between them. An understanding, a connection, the ghost of what they used to have. Evan wanted to cross the distance between them and kiss her. Wanted it so badly his hands shook, but he didn't. Not yet. She wasn't ready. and he wouldn't push. After Leah left for work, Evan cooked dinner with Noah helping, which mostly meant Noah stood on a chair and stirred things while asking endless questions. They ate together at the small kitchen table, Noah chattering about his day at preschool. After dinner, they read stories, then more stories. Then Noah asked Evan to check for monsters under the bed, which Evan did with serious thoroughness. When Noah finally fell asleep, Evan stayed on the couch, not quite ready to leave. The apartment felt different without Leah, quieter, emptier. He found himself looking at the photos on her walls, the gradual progression of Noah growing from a tiny baby to the bright-eyed boy sleeping in the next room. He'd missed all of it. The thought hurt more than he expected. His phone buzzed. A text from Leah. "How's everything going?" "Good. Noah's asleep. I fixed a few more things. Hope that's okay. More than okay. Thank you. When will you be home?" "Not until midnight. I'm sorry. Aunt Rosa should be there soon to take over. I can stay until you get back if you want." "I don't mind." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Are you sure?" "Positive." "Okay, thank you." Evan settled deeper into the couch. Around 11:30, he dozed off. When he woke, someone was gently shaking his shoulder. "Evan." He blinked up at Leah. She looked exhausted, still in her scrubs, hair falling out of its ponytail. "Hey," he said groggily, sitting up. "You're home." "I'm home. You didn't have to stay." "I wanted to." He rubbed his face, trying to wake up. "How was work?" "Long, hard. We lost a patient tonight." Her voice cracked on the last word. Before Evan could think about it, he stood and pulled her into his arms. She resisted for only a second, then collapsed against his chest, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. He held her tight, one hand rubbing slow circles on her back, the other cradling her head. She cried into his shirt, all the exhaustion and fear and sadness pouring out. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry, I just—" "Don't apologize. You're okay. I've got you." They stood there in her small living room, holding each other like they used to, like 6 years hadn't passed, like the walls between them had never been built. When her crying finally slowed, she pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. "I got your shirt wet." "I don't care about the shirt." She looked up at him, and in that moment Evan saw everything. The woman he'd loved, the mother she'd become, the person who was trying so hard to hold everything together, beautiful and broken and strong all at once. "I miss this," she whispered. "I miss you. I miss you too. So much." They stood inches apart, breathing the same air. Evan's heart hammered. He wanted to kiss her more than he'd ever wanted anything, but something in her eyes stopped him, a lingering fear, a hesitation. Instead, he brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Get some sleep. You're exhausted." "Stay," she said suddenly. "Just for tonight. Sleep on the couch. I don't want to be alone." "Okay, I'll stay." She found him a blanket and pillow, then disappeared into her bedroom. Evan stretched out on the couch, staring at the ceiling. In the next room, Noah slept soundly. Down the hall, Leah was probably lying awake, thinking the same tangled thoughts that kept Evan awake too. This was his family. Maybe. Possibly. Almost. And he was going to do everything in his power to make it real. Morning came with small footsteps and a whisper. "Evie?" Evan opened his eyes to find Noah standing beside the couch, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "Hey, buddy. You're up early. You stayed?" "Yeah, I stayed." Noah climbed onto the couch and curled up against Evan's side, thumb in his mouth. Evan wrapped an arm around him, holding him close. The trust in that small gesture, the way Noah just fit himself against Evan like he belonged there, made Evan's throat tight. They lay there quietly until Leah emerged from her bedroom, looking better rested, but still tired. She stopped when she saw them together on the couch. "Morning," Evan said softly. "Morning." She moved to the kitchen and started making coffee. "Thank you for staying." "Any time." Over breakfast, scrambled eggs that Evan made while Leah sat at the table with Noah, they talked about simple things. Noah's preschool schedule, the weather, nothing heavy, nothing that required decisions. But when Evan stood to leave, pulling on his jacket, Leah followed him to the door. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Anything." "Why are you doing this? Really? You could walk away. No one would blame you." Evan looked past her to where Noah sat at the table, legs swinging, humming to himself. Then he looked back at Leah. "Because when I saw Noah that first day at the hospital, something clicked into place. Like a piece of me I didn't know was missing suddenly appeared. And when I'm with you, with both of you, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He paused. I know I can't make up for the past, but I can be here now, and I will be, for as long as you'll let me. Leah's eyes shimmered with tears. I want to believe you. Then believe me. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to convince herself. Okay. The following week brought an unexpected complication. Evan was at a job site when his phone rang. Leah's name flashed on the screen. Hey, he answered. Everything okay? Noah's preschool just called. He told his teacher he has a daddy now, and they're confused because his records list no father. They think there's some kind of custody situation going on, and they're asking questions, and I don't know what to tell them, and... Leah, breathe. It's okay. It's not okay. What if they call social services? What if they think I'm lying about something? What if... Meet me at your apartment in 20 minutes. We'll figure this out. He left the job site immediately, Mark covering for him without question. When he got to Leah's place, she was pacing on the porch, phone clutched in her hand. They want me to come in tomorrow to talk, she said as soon as she saw him. They want documentation, proof of who Noah's father is. Then we give them proof. How? We don't have proof. Evan took a breath. Then we get proof. We do a paternity test. Leah went very still. You want to do a paternity test? Don't you think it's time we knew for sure? I already know he's yours. The words hung in the air between them. Evan's heart stopped, then started again, faster. You know, I've known since the day he was born. I was too scared to tell you. Evan sat down hard on the porch steps. 4 years. She'd known for 4 years and never said anything. All this time, he'd had a son, and she'd kept it from him. The anger came swift and hot. How could you do that? How could you keep him from me? I was scared. Her voice rose. I was terrified and alone, and I thought you'd hate me for ruining your life. Ruining my life? Leah, he's my son. Knowing him could never ruin my life. You don't know that. You don't know what you would have felt 4 years ago when you were just starting your business and I was pregnant and broke, and I would have stepped up. Evan stood, his whole body shaking. I would have been there, for both of you, always. Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. Evan wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold on to the hurt of everything he'd missed. But when he looked at her, really looked at her, he saw a woman who'd been carrying an impossible weight alone for too long. His anger deflated. He sat back down, suddenly exhausted. We can't keep doing this, running from each other, hiding things. If we're going to make this work, we have to stop being scared. I know, she whispered. I know. So let's do the test. Not because I don't believe you, but because we need it for the school, for official records, for everything else that comes next. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. And Leah? No more secrets. Please. Whatever happens from here, we face it together. Together, she repeated softly. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything settling around them. Finally, Evan stood and offered her his hand. Come on. Let's go get Noah and tell him everything's okay. She took his hand and they walked inside together. The paternity test appointment was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, Evan met with the preschool director and explained the situation as honestly as he could, that he and Leah had a complicated history, that he'd only recently learned about Noah, that they were working things out. The director listened with a kind but professional expression. We just need to make sure Noah is safe and that all the adults in his life are on the same page. We are, Evan assured her. Or we're trying to be. He left feeling like they'd cleared one hurdle, but a dozen more waited ahead. At home that night, Mark came over with pizza and found Evan staring at his phone, looking at a photo Leah had sent. Noah at the playground, mid-laugh, pure joy on his face. You've got it bad, Mark observed. Yeah. Both of them or just the kid? Both. Definitely both. Mark grabbed a slice of pizza. So what's the plan? Get the test results, make sure the school knows I'm his father, figure out custody stuff, try to convince Leah that I'm not going anywhere. That's a lot. I know. You ready for it? Evan looked at the photo again. Noah's eyes, his eyes, crinkled at the corners when he laughed, just like Evan's did. Yeah, he said. I'm ready. The night before the test, Evan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed thinking about everything that was about to change. By this time tomorrow, he'd have legal proof that Noah was his son. And then what? Would Leah want him more involved? Would she push him away again? Would Noah understand what it all meant? His phone buzzed. A text from Leah. You awake? Yeah, can't sleep. Me neither. I keep thinking about tomorrow. Me too. How are you feeling? 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, scared, hopeful, grateful you're here. All of it at once. We're going to be okay. All three of us. I'm starting to believe that. Evan stared at those words for a long time. Starting to believe. It was a beginning. It was enough. Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day. You too. Good night, Evan. Good night, Leah. He set his phone down and closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, sleep came easily. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, he'd have proof that he was a father. And maybe, just maybe, he'd start to have proof that he could have the family he'd always wanted. The clinic waiting room smelled like antiseptic and nerves. Evan sat beside Leah, their knees almost touching, while Noah played with a toy truck on the floor between them. It's just a quick swab, the nurse had explained when they checked in. Simple and painless, results in 3 to 5 business days. 3 to 5 days. Evan already knew what the results would say, but having it official, having legal documentation, would change everything. It would make him Noah's father on paper, not just in his heart. Leah's leg bounced with anxiety. Evan reached over and gently placed his hand on her knee. She stilled, looking at him with wide eyes. "It's going to be okay," he said quietly. "I know. She glanced at Noah, who was making engine noises with the truck. "What if this changes things between you two? What if knowing for certain makes it feel different?" "It won't. Nothing about how I feel about him depends on a test result." She nodded, but he could see the fear lingering in her eyes. Noah Carter. A technician appeared in the doorway with a clipboard. Leah stood, reaching for Noah's hand. Evan stood too, and after a moment's hesitation, Leah took his hand as well. They walked back together, the three of them connected. The test itself took less than 5 minutes. The technician swabbed the inside of Noah's cheek first, talking to him in a cheerful voice about his toy truck. Noah barely seemed to notice the swab. Then she did Evan's. "All done," she said brightly. "You'll receive an email with the results within 5 business days." Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright. Noah ran ahead to the car, his light-up shoes flashing. Leah and Evan walked more slowly. "That's it," Leah said. "Now we just wait. Now we just wait." She looked up at him, squinting against the sun. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I want to spend the day with you both. Not thinking about the test or what happens next. Just being together." A small smile touched her lips. "What did you have in mind? The boardwalk, ice cream, maybe the arcade?" "Noah would love that. What about you? Would you love that?" She looked at him for a long moment, and something in her expression softened. "Yeah, I would." The boardwalk stretched along the waterfront, lined with shops and food stands and the old arcade that had been there since Evan was a kid. Noah held both their hands, swinging between them, laughing every time they lifted him off the ground. They got ice cream first. Noah chose chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Leah got strawberry, Evan got vanilla, and Noah insisted on trying everyone's flavors. "Mine's best," Noah declared, chocolate smeared on his chin. "Obviously," Evan said seriously, wiping Noah's face with a napkin. They walked slowly, letting Noah stop to look at everything that caught his interest. A street performer juggling, a dog wearing a bandana, a window display of toys. Evan bought Noah a small wooden boat from a craft vendor. Noah immediately insisted on naming it Evie's boat. "We can sail it in the fountain," Noah said, already running toward the decorative fountain in the center of the boardwalk. They sat on the edge while Noah sailed his boat in circles, making whooshing sounds. Other children played nearby, but Noah was content in his own world. Leah moved closer to Evan on the fountain's edge, close enough that their shoulders touched. Neither of them moved away. "This is nice," she said softly. "Yeah, it is. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Maybe nothing will go wrong." She looked at him. "Do you really believe that?" "I'm trying to." A comfortable silence settled between them. Evan watched Noah play, watched the pure joy on his face, and felt something settle in his chest. This was right. This moment, this day, these people, it was all right. After the fountain, they went to the arcade. Noah's eyes went wide at all the flashing lights and sounds. Evan loaded a card with credits, and they played skee-ball, racing games, and a basketball shooting game where Evan let Noah win. At the claw machine, Noah pressed his face against the glass, pointing at a stuffed elephant. "That one, can you get that one?" Evan had never been good at claw machines, but he fed in credits and tried anyway. First attempt, missed. Second attempt, grabbed it but dropped it. Third attempt. The elephant fell into the prize chute. Noah squealed with delight, hugging the elephant tight. "You did it, Evie. You got him." "What are you going to name him?" Leah asked. Noah thought very seriously. "Mr. Wrinkles." Leah laughed. really laughed, and the sound made Evan's heart skip. He hadn't heard her laugh like that in years, bright and genuine and beautiful. As the sun started to set, they walked back to the parking lot. Noah was getting tired, dragging his feet, clutching Mr. Wrinkles. Evan scooped him up without thinking, settling the boy on his hip. Noah's head immediately dropped onto Evan's shoulder. "Sleepy?" Evan asked. "No," Noah mumbled, already half asleep. Leah walked beside them, her hand occasionally brushing Evan's arm. At the car, she helped buckle Noah into his car seat. The boy was asleep before they even pulled out of the parking lot. "Want to get dinner?" Evan asked. "I can pick something up and bring it to your place." "Actually," Leah bit her lip, "do you want to come over and cook together? Like we used to?" The invitation felt significant, like she was opening a door she'd kept locked. "I'd like that." At Leah's apartment, they worked side by side in the small kitchen. Evan chopped vegetables while Leah seasoned chicken. They moved around each other easily, falling into an old rhythm neither had forgotten. "You remember when we tried to make that complicated French dish?" Leah said, laughing softly. "And we ended up burning everything. We ordered pizza at midnight and ate it on your apartment floor. You had flour in your hair for 3 days. You had garlic on your breath for a week." They laughed together, the sound filling the small space. It felt like old times, like 6 years hadn't passed, like they were just two people in love making dinner together. But they weren't the same people anymore. They'd both grown, both changed. Leah was a mother now. Evan was, hopefully, a father. The stakes were higher, the risks greater. "I've been thinking," Leah said, as they sat down to eat, Noah still sleeping in his room, "about what happens after we get the results." "What about it?" "You'll want to be more involved in Noah's life, which is good. He needs you, but I need to know—" She paused, gathering courage. "I need to know what you want from me." Evan set down his fork. "What do you mean? Are we just co-parenting? Is that all this is? Because I need to know so I can protect myself." "Protect yourself from what?" "From hoping for more than you're willing to give." Evan's chest tightened. He'd been trying to be patient, trying not to push, but maybe that had been the wrong approach. Maybe she needed to hear the truth. "Leah, I'm not here just for Noah. Yes, I want to be his father, but I also want—" He took a breath. "I want you. I want us. The way we used to be, except better this time. Stronger." Her eyes went wide. "Evan, I never stopped loving you. Not once in 6 years. And being here with you now, seeing the person you've become, the mother you are, I love you even more." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" "Because what if you change your mind? What if you wake up one day and realize this is too hard, too messy, too complicated? Then I'll work through it. With you. I'm not running, Leah, not this time, not ever." She stood abruptly, walking to the window. Her shoulders shook. Evan stood too, moving behind her but not touching her, giving her space. "I'm so tired of being scared," she whispered. "Then stop. Let me in. All the way." She turned to face him, and the raw emotion in her eyes nearly broke him. "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. You've already started." They stood inches apart, the air between them electric with tension. Evan lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away her tears. "I'm here," he said softly. "Right here. And I'm not leaving. Promise?" "Promise." And then, finally, he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, careful, testing the waters. But when she made a small sound and pressed closer, wrapping her arms around his neck, the kiss deepened. 6 years of longing poured into that kiss. 6 years of missing each other, of broken hearts slowly healing, of finding their way back. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Leah rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she whispered. "I never stopped either. I tried to, but I couldn't." "Good. Don't try." She laughed, a watery sound. "This is crazy." "Probably. What if we mess it up? Then we'll fix it. Together." That word, together, seemed to settle something in her. She nodded and kissed him again, softer this time, but no less meaningful. From down the hall came a small voice. "Mommy?" They pulled apart. Leah wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "I'm here, baby." Noah appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, clutching Mr. Wrinkles. He took in the scene, his mother's tear-stained face, Evan standing close, and his little brow furrowed with concern. "Why are you sad?" "I'm not sad," Leah said, kneeling down to his level. "I'm happy, Very happy. Happy crying? Yes, happy crying. Noah seemed to accept this. He padded over to Evan and lifted his arms. Up, Evan picked him up, holding him close. Noah's small arms wrapped around his neck, warm and trusting. Evie's staying? Noah asked hopefully. Evan looked at Leah. She gave a small nod. Yeah, buddy, I'm staying. That night, after Noah fell back asleep, Evan and Leah stayed up late talking. Really talking, for the first time since he'd walked back into her life. She told him about the pregnancy, how scared she'd been, how Aunt Rosa had taken her in, how she'd cried herself to sleep most nights those first few months. She told him about Noah's birth, about holding him for the first time, and seeing Evan's eyes looking back at her. I almost called you so many times, she admitted. I'd have my phone in my hand, your number pulled up, and I'd just freeze. I couldn't make myself do it. I wish you had, but I understand why you didn't. Do you? Because I'm not sure I do anymore. Evan took her hand, lacing their fingers together. You were protecting yourself, and Noah. It makes sense, even if it hurt. I'm sorry for all of it. I know, and I forgive you. Those simple words seemed to lift a weight off her shoulders. She sagged against him, and he wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait for the test results. Then we figure out custody arrangements, legal stuff, all the practical things. That sounds complicated. Probably will be, but we'll handle it. She tilted her head to look up at him. And us? What about us? What do you want? I want... She paused, gathering courage. I want to try again. For real. Not just for Noah, but for us. Then that's what we'll do. Slow, though. I need slow. As slow as you need. She kissed him then, sweet and brief, but full of promise. Stay tonight? On the couch? I'll stay wherever you want me. They fell asleep on the couch together. Leah curled against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. It was the best sleep Evan had gotten in 6 years. The next few days passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost surreal. Evan went to work, but left early to spend time with Noah and Leah. They had dinner together every night. He helped with bath time, read bedtime stories, fixed more things around the apartment that needed attention. The town started to notice. At the hardware store, the clerk asked if he was finally settling down. At the coffee shop, 2 women whispered and glanced their way. Mark reported that the job sites were buzzing with gossip. Let them talk, Evan said. I don't care. But Leah cared. He could see it in the way she tensed when people stared, the way she looked over her shoulder when they walked down the street together. Everyone's watching us, she said one evening as they walked to the park. Does that bother you? A little. I'm not used to being the center of attention. They'll get bored eventually. Move on to the next piece of gossip. She didn't look convinced, but she held his hand anyway. At the hospital, things got more complicated. 2 nurses cornered Leah in the break room, asking pointed questions about Noah's father. Leah called Evan afterward, voice shaking. They think I've been lying this whole time. One of them said I was being irresponsible, not having his father listed on official documents. You want me to come down there? No, I needed to hear your voice. The test results will come soon. Then we'll have proof. Then everyone will know the truth. I'm tired of defending myself. Then don't. You don't owe anyone explanations. But he knew it wasn't that simple. Not in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. Not when there was a child involved. On day 4 of waiting, Evan got a call from his lawyer, a guy he'd used for business contracts but who also handled family law. I looked over the situation, the lawyer said. Once you have the paternity results, we'll need to establish formal custody arrangements, file the paperwork with the court. It's all pretty straightforward as long as both parents agree. We agree we want shared custody. Good, that'll make it easier. We can probably have everything filed within a month. A month. 1 month until it was all official, all legal. 1 month until Evan was officially Noah's father in every way that mattered. That night, he told Leah about the call. She listened quietly, nodding at the right places. A month sounds fast, she said. Is that okay? I think so, yeah. It means you'll have legal rights, be able to make decisions about school, medical stuff, everything. We'll make those decisions together. She smiled. I know. Noah was playing in the living room, building a tower with blocks. Evan watched him, this small person who'd become the center of his world so quickly. I was thinking, Evan said carefully, about the future, about what might make sense for all of us. What do you mean? Your lease is up in a few months, right? And you said you wanted to save for a house. Eventually, yeah. What if... He paused, suddenly nervous. What if we looked for a place together? Not right away, but soon. Something with space for all of us. Leah went very still. You want to live together? Only if you're ready. I know it's fast, but it would make things easier. With Noah, with everything. Evan, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it. She looked at Noah, then back at Evan. I'll think about it. It wasn't a no, it was enough. The email came on day 5, early in the morning. Evan was at work when his phone buzzed. He saw the subject line, paternity test results, ready for download, and his heart stopped. His hands shook as he opened it. The PDF loaded slowly, one agonizing second at a time. Then there it was, in black and white. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. Evan sat down hard on a stack of lumber. The words blurred as tears filled his eyes. He was Noah's father, officially, legally, undeniably. His son. Noah was his son. He called Leah immediately. She answered on the first ring. Did you get it? She asked breathlessly. Yeah, I got it. And? 98%. He's mine. He's my son. Silence. Then the sound of Leah crying. I knew it. But seeing it. Where are you? Home. Noah's with Aunt Rosa at the park. I'm coming over. Okay, yes, come over. Evan left the job site, Mark covering for him again without question. The drive to Leah's apartment took forever and no time at all. He parked and ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. Leah opened the door before he could knock. Her face was wet with tears, but she was smiling. He caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground, spinning her once before setting her down. He's ours, Evan said, his own tears flowing freely now. He's really ours. I know. God, I know. They held each other in the doorway, crying and laughing at the same time. 4 years of secrets, 4 years of separation, 4 years of missing each other, all of it leading to this moment. When they finally pulled apart, Leah cupped his face in her hands. You're a father. I'm a father. She kissed him, deep and sure, and when they broke apart, they were both breathless. We need to tell him, Leah said, together, before he hears it from someone else. How do we do that? What do we say? The truth, simple and honest. He's 4. He won't understand all of it, but he'll understand that you're his dad. The word, dad, hit Evan right in the chest. His dad. He was Noah's dad. They walked to the park together, hand in hand, found Noah on the swings with Aunt Rosa pushing him. Higher, Noah called out, laughing. Evan and Leah approached together. Aunt Rosa saw them first, read something in their expressions, and smiled knowingly. I'll go get us some ice cream, she said, giving Leah a meaningful look. Take your time. Noah jumped off the swing mid-arc, landing in the sand with a laugh. He ran to them, light-up shoes flashing. Look how high I was. So high, Evan agreed, kneeling down to Noah's level. Hey, buddy, can we talk to you for a minute? Okay. Noah looked between them, curious but not worried. Leah knelt beside Evan. They were both at Noah's eye level now, the 3 of them forming a small circle. Noah, Leah started gently, you know how you've been asking about daddies, about why some kids have them and you don't? Noah nodded seriously. Well, the thing is, you do have a daddy. You've always had one. And, her voice caught. Evan reached over and took her hand, squeezing gently. She continued, and Evan is your daddy. Noah's eyes went wide. He looked at Evan with an expression of pure wonder. Really? Really, Evan said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm your dad, and I'm so happy about that. You're my dad, Noah repeated, like he was testing the words. Yes. For a moment, Noah just stared. Then, without warning, he launched himself at Evan, wrapping his small arms around Evan's neck in the tightest hug he'd ever given. I have a dad, Noah whispered into Evan's shoulder. I have a dad now. Evan held him close, one hand cradling Noah's head, the other around his small back. Tears streamed down his face unchecked. You've always had a dad, buddy. I just didn't know it yet, but I'm here now, and I'm never leaving. Leah was crying too, watching them together. Noah pulled back just enough to look at Evan's face. Can I call you Dad? Evan's throat was too tight to speak. He nodded. Dad, Noah said, trying it out. Then, louder and happier. Dad! He said it over and over, like a magic word, and each time Evan's heart swelled bigger, fuller, until he thought it might burst right out of his chest. This was his son, his family, his whole world, right here in his arms. Everything he'd ever wanted and never knew he could have. The days after the paternity reveal felt like living in a dream. Noah called Evan Dad approximately 700 times a day, like he was making up for lost time. Each time, Evan's heart did something complicated in his chest, equal parts joy and grief for the years he'd missed. But he was here now. That's what mattered. The legal paperwork moved forward quickly. Evan's lawyer filed the paternity acknowledgement with the court, along with a petition for shared custody. Leah signed everything without hesitation, and her signature beside his on those documents felt significant, like they were building something real and permanent together. At work, Evan found himself distracted. Mark caught him staring at his phone for the dozenth time, looking at a photo Noah had insisted on taking, a blurry selfie of the three of them at the park. "You've got it bad," Mark said, grinning. "Yeah, I do. When are you going to make it official?" "Make what official? Come on, man. You're practically living there. You're in love with her. Noah calls you dad. When are you going to actually propose?" Evan hadn't let himself think that far ahead. He was still getting used to being a father, still navigating the careful dance of rebuilding a relationship with Leah. Marriage felt like too much, too soon. But the seed was planted. And once it was there, he couldn't stop thinking about it. That weekend, Evan helped Leah paint Noah's bedroom. The walls had been a dingy beige, and Noah had requested dinosaur green. They settled on a soft sage color that Noah approved of after serious consideration. While Noah napped, Evan and Leah worked side by side, painting in comfortable silence. Music played softly from Leah's phone. Paint splattered on their clothes. It was messy and domestic and perfect. "I've been thinking about what you said," Leah said suddenly, "about finding a place together." Evan paused mid-stroke, trying to keep his voice casual. "Yeah? I'm scared, but I think I want that, for all of us." He set down his paint roller and turned to face her. "You sure?" "No, but I'm learning that being sure isn't always possible. Sometimes you just have to trust." "And you trust me?" She met his eyes. "I'm trying to, and I think I'm getting there." It wasn't a declaration of absolute faith, but it was honest, and Evan appreciated honesty more than empty promises. "Then let's start looking," he said. "No pressure. We'll take our time, find something that feels right. Something with a yard. Noah needs space to run, and a good kitchen for cooking together, and an office space for you, for blueprints and business stuff." They were planning a life together, building a future. The reality of it settled warm in Evan's chest. Leah stepped closer, getting paint on his shirt when she wrapped her arms around his waist. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being patient with me. For not giving up." He kissed the top of her head. "Never." The following Tuesday, Leah's phone rang during dinner. She glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's the preschool," she answered, and Evan watched her expression shift from confusion to concern to something like panic. "Okay, yes. I'll be right there." She hung up and grabbed her purse. "Noah hit another kid. They want me to come get him." "I'll come with you." "You don't have to." "I'm coming." They drove to the preschool in tense silence. When they arrived, the director met them in the office. Noah sat in a small chair, tear-streaked and defiant. "What happened?" Leah asked, kneeling beside him. The director explained. Another boy had said Noah was lying about having a dad. Noah had pushed him, hard enough that the other child fell and scraped his knee. "Noah," Leah said gently, "we don't hit. You know that." "He said I was lying." Noah's voice rose, wobbling. "He said I didn't have a dad and I was making it up." Evan knelt down too, so he was eye level with Noah. "Hey, look at me, buddy." Noah turned, eyes swimming with tears. "You're not lying," Evan said firmly. "I am your dad, and no one gets to tell you different. But pushing isn't how we handle it when people say mean things." "But I know. He was wrong. But you have to use your words, not your hands, understand?" Noah nodded miserably. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, we all make mistakes. But you need to apologize to the other boy, okay?" They sorted it out. Apologies exchanged, scraped knees bandaged, teachers satisfied. On the drive home, Noah was quiet in the back seat. "You okay, baby?" Leah asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I just wanted everyone to know," Noah said softly, "that I have a dad now, that he's real." Evan's throat tightened. He reached back and squeezed Noah's knee. "I'm real, buddy, and I'm not going anywhere." That night, after Noah was asleep, Leah collapsed on the couch beside Evan. "This is harder than I thought." "What is?" "All of it. Blending our lives, dealing with other people's reactions, helping Noah adjust. We're figuring it out." "Are we?" She looked at him, exhausted and uncertain. "What if we're moving too fast? What if we're confusing him?" "Noah's not confused. He's adjusting. That's different." "But what if—" Evan took her hand. Leah, stop, you're spiraling. I know, I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for this to fall apart. It's not going to fall apart. You don't know that. No, but I believe it, and I need you to believe it too. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in silence for a while. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Inside, their small family was safe and together. I'm trying, she whispered. I know. That's enough. 2 weeks later, Evan got a call that changed everything. His business partner Mark had been contacted by a developer interested in buying Walker Construction. The offer was substantial, enough money that Evan would never have to work again if he didn't want to. It's a good deal, Mark said over lunch. Really good. You could retire at 30. Live on the beach. Do whatever you want. Evan stared at the contract paperwork spread across the table. 6 years of blood, sweat and tears reduced to numbers on a page. What do you think I should do? He asked. I think you should consider it, but not because of the money. Mark leaned forward. You've been distracted lately. Your heart isn't in this anymore. It's with them, Leah and Noah. Maybe it's time to let the business go and focus on what really matters. Evan thought about it all afternoon. That evening he brought it up with Leah while they did dishes together, Noah playing in the living room. A developer wants to buy the company, he said, scrubbing a plate. What? Evan, that's huge. What are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to keep building, keep growing, but another part, he paused. Another part thinks maybe Mark's right. Maybe it's time to step back, spend more time with you and Noah. Leah set down the dish she was drying. You love that company. You built it from nothing. I do. But I love you more, both of you. Her eyes went soft. You can't make this decision based on us. Why not? You're my family. That matters more than any business. But what if you regret it later? What if you resent us for it? I won't. You don't know that. Evan turned to face her fully. Leah, for 6 years I poured everything into that company because I didn't have anything else. Now I do. Now I have you and Noah, and that's worth more than any amount of money or success. She looked at him like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. You really mean that? Every word. She stepped into his arms, and he held her close. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. We're with you. Evan spent the next week thinking. He reviewed the offer, consulted with lawyers, talked it through with Mark. The money was good. The terms were fair. It was a clean exit. But it also meant giving up something he'd built with his own hands, something he'd been proud of. One evening he sat on Leah's porch while she put Noah to bed. Aunt Rosa came out and settled beside him. You've got something on your mind, she observed. How can you tell? I'm old, I know things. She smiled. Talk to me. Evan explained about the offer, about the decision weighing on him. Rosa listened quietly. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. My husband worked himself to death, she said finally. Literally, heart attack at 53 sitting at his desk. He missed so much of our kids growing up because he was always working, always trying to provide. And you know what he told me in the hospital right before he died? What? He said he wished he'd worked less and loved more. She looked at Evan. You've got a chance most men don't get. A chance to choose your family first. Don't waste it. The words settled deep in Evan's chest. That night he made his decision. The paperwork took 3 weeks to finalize. Evan sold Walker Construction to the development company for enough money to secure his family's future. He kept a small consulting role, enough to stay connected to the work he loved without the stress of running everything. When it was done, he felt lighter, freer, like he'd been carrying a weight he hadn't realized was there. He told Leah over dinner at his condo, the first time she'd been there. Noah was with Aunt Rosa for the evening, giving them rare time alone. You really did it, she said, looking at him across the table. You sold the company. I did. How do you feel? Relieved, excited, a little scared. Of what? Of not knowing what comes next. She reached across the table and took his hand. We'll figure it out together. There was that word again. Together. It had become their promise, their anchor. After dinner, they stood on his balcony overlooking the water. The ocean stretched endlessly under the night sky, dark and mysterious and beautiful. I've been thinking, Evan said carefully, about us, about the future. What about it? I want to make this official, not just for Noah's sake, but for us. He turned to face her. I want to marry you, Leah. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. When you're ready, when it feels right. She looked up at him, eyes shining. Are you proposing? Not yet, I'm just letting you know where my head is, so there are no surprises. I appreciate that. And what do you think? She was quiet for a moment, and Evan's heart hammered against his ribs. Then she smiled, really smiled, bright and genuine. "I think eventually sounds perfect." Relief flooded through him. He pulled her close and kissed her, and she melted against him. The kiss was slow and deep, full of promise and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Leah rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she said. "I should say it more. I love you, Evan. So much it scares me sometimes. I love you too, and you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm trying not to be. That's all I ask." They stood on the balcony until the air grew cold, wrapped in each other's arms, planning a future that finally felt possible. 3 months passed in a blur of house hunting and family dinners and bedtime stories. They found a place, a small house with a yard and enough bedrooms for everyone. It needed work, but Evan knew how to fix things, and this time he'd have help. The day they got the keys, all 3 of them walked through the empty rooms. Noah ran from space to space, his voice echoing, claiming the bedroom with the window seat as his own. "This is really ours?" Leah asked, standing in the living room. "All of ours?" "All ours." She turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "We're really doing this, building a life together." "Yeah, we are." Noah ran back to them, breathless and happy. "Can we paint my room dinosaur green here too?" "Absolutely," Evan said, scooping him up. "Whatever you want, buddy." That night they had a picnic on the living room floor. Sandwiches and juice boxes and cookies, no furniture yet, just blankets spread across the hardwood, but it felt like home already. After they ate, Noah curled up between them, drowsy and content. "Tell me a story, Dad," he said, the word casual now, natural. Evan looked at Leah. She smiled and nodded. "Once upon a time," Evan began, "there was a little boy who was brave and smart and kind, and he had a mom who loved him more than anything in the world. One day the boy met a man who didn't know it yet, but who would become his dad, and together, the 3 of them built something special, a family, a real family. And they lived happily, ever after," Noah supplied sleepily. "Even better," Evan said, looking at Leah, whose eyes were bright with tears. "They lived, just lived together, every day, and that was the best kind of happy there is." Noah fell asleep in the middle of the story, his small body warm and trusting between them. Evan and Leah sat quietly, listening to him breathe, not ready to disturb the perfect peace of the moment. "Thank you," Leah whispered. "For what? For not giving up on us. For being patient. For being exactly what we needed. You did the hard part. You raised him alone for 4 years. You built a life from nothing. We both did." She reached across Noah and took Evan's hand. "But now we don't have to do it alone anymore. No, now we're a team, a family." "A family," Evan echoed. 6 months after the paternity test, Evan stood in Noah's new bedroom, helping him arrange toy dinosaurs on a shelf. They'd painted the walls together, all 3 of them, even though Noah's help mostly meant getting paint everywhere. The room was perfect, exactly what a little boy needed. Through the window, Evan could see Leah in the backyard, planting flowers in the garden bed he'd built. She wore old jeans and one of his t-shirts, her hair pulled back, dirt smudged on her cheek. She'd never looked more beautiful. "Dad?" Noah tugged on his sleeve. "Yeah, buddy? Are you happy?" The question caught Evan off guard. He knelt down, meeting Noah's serious gaze. "Yeah, I'm really happy. Are you?" Noah nodded. "I always wanted a dad, and then you came. Like magic." "Not magic, just luck. Really good luck. Will you always be my dad? Forever?" "Forever and ever. I promise." Noah hugged him tight, and Evan held on, breathing in the smell of kid shampoo and paint and home. Later that evening, after Noah was asleep, Evan and Leah sat on their new porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You know what I realized today?" Leah said. "What?" "I'm not scared anymore. Or at least, not as scared. I look at you, at Noah, at this house we're building together, and I feel safe, happy, home." Evan wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Good, because you are home. We all are. How did we get here? From that day in the ER to this? One day at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice at a time." She tilted her head up to look at him. "I choose you. Every day. I choose you. And I choose you. Both of you. Always." They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky turning from gold to purple to deep blue. Around them, their neighborhood settled into evening quiet, dogs barking in the distance, wind chimes tinkling, the soft sounds of other families in their own homes. Inside, Noah slept soundly, secure in the knowledge that both his parents were there, that he was loved, that his family was whole. And on the porch, Evan held Leah close and thought about how a simple cut, a rusty nail on an ordinary afternoon, had changed everything, had brought him face to face with a past he'd thought was lost forever, had given him a son he didn't know existed, had returned to him the love of his life. Sometimes the best things came from unexpected pain. Sometimes you had to bleed a little to find your way home. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "I love you too," she whispered back. "So much." A year later, on a warm Saturday afternoon, Evan knelt in their backyard while Noah and Leah worked on the garden. He'd been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment, and this perfect ordinary day felt exactly right. "Leah," he called her name, his voice carrying across the yard. She looked up, dirt on her hands, a smile on her face. "Yeah?" He walked over to where she stood, Noah watching curiously. His heart hammered, but he wasn't nervous. He'd never been more sure of anything in his life. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you and I love Noah and I love this life we've built together, and I want to keep building it forever." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple ring, nothing flashy, just a band of gold with a small diamond. Leah's hands flew to her mouth. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "Will you be my wife, officially and forever?" Tears streamed down her face. She nodded, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, of course yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. Noah ran over, jumping up and down. "Are you getting married?" he asked excitedly. "Like in movies?" "Yeah, buddy," Evan said, not taking his eyes off Leah. "We're getting married. Can I be in it? You're going to be the most important part of it." Noah cheered, running circles around them. Leah laughed through her tears, holding up her hand to catch the sunlight on the ring. "I can't believe this is real," she said. "Believe it. We're getting married. We're getting married." She kissed him then, deep and sure, and Evan felt everything click into place. His family, his home, his whole heart, right here in this backyard on this ordinary, extraordinary day. They'd come so far. From that moment in the ER when time stopped, to fights and fears and tears, to slowly learning to trust again, to this, to forever. Noah tugged on both their hands, pulling them toward the house. "Can we have cake? You have to have cake when someone gets married." "We don't have cake yet, baby," Leah said, laughing. "Then let's make some," Noah insisted. So they did. The three of them crowded into their kitchen, making a lopsided cake from a box mix, getting flour everywhere, laughing when Noah dropped an egg on the floor. It was messy and chaotic, and absolutely perfect. And later, when the cake was in the oven and Noah was in the living room watching a movie, Evan and Leah stood by the kitchen window, holding each other close. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on us, for fighting for us when I was too scared to fight for myself. You were fighting too in your own way. You were protecting Noah, protecting your heart. I understand that now. I'm not scared anymore. Not of loving you, not of this. Good. Because I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. Promise? Promise." Outside, the sun was setting again, painting their yard in golden light. The flowers they'd planted were blooming. The house they'd made a home stood solid and welcoming behind them. And somewhere in the living room, their son laughed at something on the television. This was it. This was everything. A family built from second chances and brave choices. A love that had survived separation and fear and doubt. A little boy who'd brought them together and given them both a reason to be better, braver, stronger. Not a perfect life, but a real one, a good one filled with ordinary moments that somehow became extraordinary just by being shared. Evan kissed Leah's forehead and held her close, and for the first time in as long as he could remember, everything felt exactly as it should be. They were home, they were happy, they were whole. And tomorrow and every day after that, they would wake up and choose each other again. Choose this life, choose this love, together, always together. The end.